I've been playing Sonic games from the start. I've played most of the series, Master System ports of 1 and 2, Game Gear oddities, and all endings on Shadow the Hedgehog. Sat through the excruciating load times of Sonic 2006, only consciously quitting and giving up on Sonic and the Black Knight with its motion controls. The point is, I've been there. I've been with the series at its darkest hours, and this isn't it. This is something a bit worse than that. Those had the audacity of being interestingly bad. Sonic Frontiers isn't terrible. It's just disappointing, and not in a way like Sonic Forces where fan mods can do wonders to fix the mechanical issues. Frontiers suffers from a lack of imagination. I've heard much talk over the years about Sonic's need to reinvent himself, and have to ask, when hasn't he? I've seen this series swing wildly in tone and setting, even genre now and then. But an open world was always a wanted direction for some. A fan-made creation trying boldly to do just that. But I doubt we've gotten this offering without the great success of Breath of the Wild, a game that Frontiers probably owes a lot to. This game is a waste of a promising premise that almost delivers, but keeps tripping itself up right to the very end. I'll go into detail in a bit, but first and in summary, while I enjoyed the new free exploration of the world, issues with frustrating control, hampered by extraneous systems, dragged me down into making this game not one I could recommend. Let's start with what I liked, and there are things to like in this game, which makes what comes all the more disappointing. The open world is pretty neat. It is a strong moment when you exit the tutorial area, and presented with Cronus Island, a rainy and lonely expanse of flowered fields and sparse woodlands, dotted with the ancient ruins of a long-gone civilization, but also filled with a host of playground objects, springs, boost pads and grind rails connecting floating platforms, each a small and fast puzzle that rewards you with a glittering collection token at the end. Hostile ancient robots wander the world, ranging from simple encounters to full mini-bosses, each presenting a puzzle to be figured out and be rewarded with the game's various collectibles. The puzzle encounters constantly scaling up and iterating on themselves, doing a great deal to keep the game feeling fresh and satisfying. The map exploration puzzles leaving you to figure things out, the black rings in particular making me feel like an idiot for not realizing sooner how to solve them. It's a good feeling speeding between these mini set pieces. Sonic moves fast and free in any direction you feel, right until you clip against an object and control is ripped away from you, putting Sonic into a set piece that sometimes you don't want to be in, locking the camera and frustrating your efforts to get off the ride. Inversely, sometimes you'll access one of these set pieces midway and the game won't know what to do with you, expecting you to be locked into the 2D side-scrolling view, making it difficult to do the section you wanted to try. I did have fun, running from map point to map point, uncovering the world and summoning the quick travel grind rail between locations, revealing and collecting the music notes to add to my in-game jukebox of classic Sonic musics, and some not-so-classic tracks. The world is crammed with collectibles and objectives, your primary focus in Frontiers being the acquisition of portal gears, vault keys and memory tokens. The portal gears needed to open the portal gates to enter cyberspace, the sections of the game where you play through brief levels in the main Sonic style, the results of these determining how many vault keys you exit with. The vault keys being needed to unlock the Chaos Emeralds on each island, essentials in progressing the main story along with story tokens. Each island carrying a unique set of story tokens used to talk to your friends, the part I found strongest in the game and where I see the recent need for Sonic to hire a lore master. A series that's over time has stuffed itself with new cast members, strips things back to its core 5, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy and Robotnik, the only newcomer being Sage, who makes a good first step in the franchise. The story, presented with solidly delivered dialogue, does an effort to fix the characterizations of them, directly addressing some wildly changing personalities over the years. In a moment of self-reflection, Tails summarizes his own personality as having been wildly inconsistent. So, Frontier sees a conscious effort to set themselves on a newly focused direction in the future. If they remember to keep that is yet to be seen. Overall, I enjoyed listening to the conversations in both main and the plethora of side stories, Sonic occasionally making aside comments about things he passes in the world. Names, places and events are dropped left, right and centre from all over the franchise. Well worth the time to listen to. However, things now start to slide downhill, out of control and into the sea. I have to address the control issues first. Whilst the direct forward motion is great, the island-based nature of the game means big open spaces around and under the islands. Occasional glitches in physics causing Sonic to catapult wildly into space, out to see a try again screen. Several occasions, Sonic being snapped onto the ground meant an effort to jump out of a speed boost near a ledge saw the blue blur now angled downwards, so I shot forward at a shallow angle rather than upwards. Worse being the controls in cyberspace, which want you to be going constantly forward, so when you are not, Sonic feels terrible to manoeuvre, and in the air from a jump has almost no direction control, leaving him feeling like steering a boat. This, while trying to get rings, red stars, and the time challenges, makes you have to repeat the cyberspace zones, and be prepared for repetition in general. Smaller things that bug me are the constant repetitious cutscenes. Skippable as they are, only the one that plays when Sonic maxes his rings can be toggled off in the menu. Other than that, you'll have to watch an identical cutscene every time Sonic puts a portal gear into a gate, another cutscene when he activates the gate to enter cyberspace, another when he leaves the gate, a separate cutscene for receiving the keys he got in the cyberspace mission, every time you pour keys into an emerald vault to receive a Chaos Emerald, and every time you want to talk to a side story you'll have to watch an identical animation over and over, skipping the same repeating animations. That's not even getting into Sonic's I found an emerald dance sequence. The game's open spaces start strong, but soon reveal that they have nothing special to show you. The cut-and-paste Ancients architecture that dots the game maps, with the new enemy aesthetic contributing to the overall feeling that this wasn't made for a Sonic game. The game's 5 wide maps actually being 4 and really feeling closer to 3. Kronos Island, the smallest of the islands, a grassland with grey rocks. Ari's Island, a sandy desert with brown rocks. Chaos Island is the emptiest, being an ash-covered volcanic wasteland with black rocks. Rhea Island is just the northern half of Kronos Island again, dotted with ruins, but for no reason to explore them. Finishing with Oranus Island, which is just back to the same grassland and grey rocks of Kronos and Rhea again. And the memory tokens to gather here are just Amy's heart tokens once more. The few areas of genuine interest in the maps are small, far between, and nothing of note is going on in them, so they are lost in the open nothingness of it all. This pattern of reuse continues into cyberspace, where you had better like Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Sky Sanctuary zones with some Radical Highway, as that's all you're getting. Those 4 themes comprising the entirety of the game's cyberspace sections, a lot being chunks lifted wholesale out of Sonic Generations. I could forgive the reuse of Generations sections if the rest of the open world wasn't so plain. Couldn't we have got a bit more visual style into these places? The Sonic world has always been a varied place. With this part of the series so starkly missing here, the game feels lesser despite its markedly wider play area. A play area it needs you to be running around gathering the many collectible currencies it expects you to spend. Sonic acquires new combat skills by a limited upgrade tree, enemies dropping the shards you pour into that tree, but if you are running and engaging with the world as it begs you to do, these points will come very fast. I was done with it by midway through the second island. All skills unlocked and the points still dropping with nothing to spend them on until the counter maxed out. Alongside this are Sonic's 4 stat levels. Yes, stat levels. Speed, ring cap, attack and defense. Collecting the Cocos that wander the world and returning to the round Elder Coco will reward you with a choice, to improve Sonic's speed or his ring capacity by 1 step, or pour them all at once into 1 stat, jumping it by a large number. The release version of the game restricted you to only being able to ask the Elder for an upgrade to 1 stat 1% at a time. I can only imagine the pain of manually having to crawl your way up the progress ladder like that. Counterpart to them is the tall Elder Coco. They take the blue and red fruits upping Sonic's attack and blue his defense. The fruits are found by completing map challenges, but are also dropped frequently by enemies along with Emerald Vault keys. Sometimes you'll run in a circle to do the game's new featured attack, and these pickups will simply pop up out of the ground. So there's no short supply of these, just a large amount needed to increase the stats. Also around you'll find floating purple coins, these being the currency for Big's Fishing Lake, access through his own portal on each island. Having completed Sonic Adventure 1, I know the pain of fishing with Big, and was pleasantly surprised by this simple and relaxing minigame. Each object you fish up, giving you a bounty of fishing tokens. All the pickups mentioned previously, fishing tokens can be used to buy them all. On the last island, I had maxed out Big's coins, did a load of fishing and bought everything. Returning to the relevant hand-in points, I bought my way from low 30s to 100% in all stats, negating the need to engage with enemies or the world anymore, and suddenly trivializing many of the game's harder fights. The ending caught me off guard, quite literally. I was gathering objectives, getting side stories, then all of a sudden, no warning or intro, the final boss is coming out of the ground from nowhere. Due to my now ramped up power, in under 2 minutes it was down, and following the same quick time prompt 3 times in a row, the game was over. I'm still not sure what the game was building to. Throughout you see ancients were fighting something, but you never see it or learn what it was. It was always off screen. You best another titan, then the Dark Moon appears, you punch it as supersonic and the game is over. I am aware there is more, but I seem to have not met the requirements to get that extra section of the game. Though having watched it on YouTube, I'm still not wholly certain what it was all about. After the build-up, I was invested in the mystery. What was so dangerous the ancients had an anime space battle and sacrifice to contain? It was all over, the story ending with a wet fart of nothingness, apt for the nothing that was the last island of recycled content. Not even being supersonic was impressive at that point. Traditionally, the end of most Sonic games, the super form of Sonic closes out the story. But here you do the supersonic fights 4 times. The game loop has you arrive on an island, soon meet the Titan for that island, gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds, turn into supersonic, fight the Titan, fly to the next island, lose all the emeralds, repeat. There are some other smaller gripes that detract from the overall experience, like the jukebox. Added in after launch, it is a very cool feature on its own, but it keeps playing when you enter story scenes meant to have the game's ambient music. On more than one occasion, I found a somber moment somewhat undermined by Live and Learn blasting out in the background. A solution to that would have been for the jukebox to fade out and switch to the default soundtrack when entering story sections. Lastly, the Digital Deluxe Edition is not worth it at all. It offers you a handful of in-game tokens for the first island that you'll be tripping over, making them redundant. The art book and soundtrack are a separate .exe file rather than an image or music folder that you can look at separately or export into a media player. The only usable bit is a pair of boots and gloves for Sonic. In conclusion, the lack of imagination, frustrating controls, and time wasted with poorly implemented skill systems in many ways make Sonic Frontiers' open-world premise so much worse than bad. They make it a waste and a disappointment. Those are my thoughts on Sonic Frontiers. I have never done a video before, and it's been an interesting experience. I might make more in the future if it takes me. Thank you for listening.